What's up, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents? So right now I'm here with Jamie, our resident expert on everything, and we're gonna talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 2, episode 12. Who You Really Are. It was a good episode. We had a Asgardian come to Midgard. First of all, I want to talk about things that people who aren't into comics as much as we are here that they might not have picked up on. Lady Sif mentioned the Kree Wars. What can you tell us? She mentioned there was 2 of them. Which ones did she mention? And what are the possibilities of the ones that could be set up by Guardians you mentioned to me?
Well, they talked about, in that big kind of expo dump conversation in the middle of the episode, she talked about how the Kree came to Earth because of a long war they were in. Now, in the comics, the long war that the Kree have been in is the Kree Skrull War, where they're fighting the shape-shifting Skrulls, who are mostly known from Fantastic Four comics, and eventually that becomes a really big storyline in the Avengers, and is one of Marvel's most famous classic stories from that era. However, the movie right situation for the Skrulls is a little up in the air, because they are very tied to the Fantastic Four, but they are cosmic and so have appeared in a lot of other places. So nobody's really sure if Fox has those rights or
they might be shared, like Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
Exactly. So in Guardians of the Galaxy, we know that they shifted the Kree to, at least most recently, having been in a war with the Nova Corps. Now, whether that's the same war that stretched all the way back to when the Kree first visits Earth, we're not really sure, because that hasn't been clarified. The Kree kind of make a lot of wars. That's kind of what they do.
Yeah, that's just kind of their thing.
So we won't really know until they give us some more details on that.
I mean, they create a lot of wars, but they also create a lot of other things.
Yeah, there are 2 characteristics of the Kree society. They make war and they make science. That's their things.
So, but they created the Inhumans.
Yes,
which we've been seeing, and we've been introduced to the Inhumans on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and we have an Inhumans movie coming up. Yep. So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. looks like it's tying into the big picture, especially with Kree, so...
So, with the Inhumans, they've kind of been hinting at this, but this episode is the first time they went ahead and confirmed and gave us kind of the long history of where the Inhumans came from. It was they kind of seeded that with the blue alien that brought Coulson back, leading them to the city, where the Inhumans come back, and they still haven't called them Inhumans on the show, though they have been referring to them as such in press releases and things like that.
Yeah.
And they talked about how they were created to be soldiers in this war, whatever the war was, which is pretty in line with what they were created for in the comics. They first... our solar system, the solar system where Earth is kind of right center between where the Skrull Empire and the Kree Empire was, so they came to the solar system. They noticed there was some life over here. They actually took an interest because they noticed that the Celestials, those big, giant guys
that in Guardians.
That we saw in Guardians, had taken an interest in the humans, so they thought, hey, these guys will make some good test subjects, and they created this divergent humanoid species that we call the Inhumans, and they've, in the comic book universe, have basically lived in secret ever since then. Whether or not that the Inhumans we most know and love, the royal family of Black Bolt and Medusa, whether or not they already exist and are in hiding in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or if they're going to be created ahead of the movie, we don't really know that much yet. But we know that some new Inhumans
so they might be out there. They might be out there. We just don't know it yet.
Yes.
Okay. And on top of the Inhumans, the Kree created Captain Marvel.
Yes, that one was kind of by accident.
Well, they don't want to create the good guys.
Right. Well, so there was the first Captain Marvel was Captain Marvel, and he was a half Kree, half human. The way the current Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, the one who's going to be featured in the movie that's coming up, got her powers was she was, as a human, kidnapped by Yonrog, who was this crazy Kree military officer who fought with Captain Marvel a lot. Thanks to the reality warping powers of this weird machine he was using, some of Captain Marvel's Kree DNA got transferred to Carol Danvers, and she became Miss Marvel. This superhuman person. She only recently decided to start calling herself Captain Marvel and really take on that mantle in full. So, if they're going to do this in the comics, it's obviously going to take some alterations. I don't really see them introducing Captain Marvel, although that's possible. There's no reason they couldn't. But it seems like a long way to go about introducing Captain Marvel when they could take a more direct route. Either just make her Inhuman or introduce Kree technology some other way. So the Kree will likely be involved in her origin story in the movies somehow, but I expect to see it streamlined a little bit.
Yeah, they usually do take the liberties of altering.
Yeah, that's pretty much how they've done it with all of the characters so far.
I mean, Tony Stark had a nice big alteration to his movie. But one other thing, for fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, was that Lady Sif said that Odin sent her. Right. And if you've seen Thor: The Dark World and you've seen the end of it, you know that Loki is posing as Odin on the throne of Asgard right now.
Right. So this brings up questions of why did, knowing that Odin is Loki, there's questions of why did he send Sif to stop the Kree? And there are a couple different possibilities. He could have just been trying to keep up appearances. Sif suggested that the Asgardians have some animosity towards the Kree.
That's the simple answer.
Right. Whether that's because they want to protect Midgard or they just don't like the Kree for other reasons, we don't know. But he could have been just trying to put up appearances. Even if he was acting more selfishly, he could have just not wanted the Kree to get any sort of foothold on Earth because it's a threat to him and whatever his other greater plans might be. Or maybe he knows a little bit more of what Sky and the Inhumans mean and have his own plans for that. We don't know.
Usually
we haven't seen
though. Usually up to no good.
Yeah, Loki.
He's Loki.
Wheels within wheels with him.
You never get what you see with him.
Right,
exactly. That's his trick, though. But
especially right now, where he looks like Odin.
And at the very end of the episode, we saw Mac choke out Hunter. Mm-hmm. What could Mac be hiding from S.H.I.E.L.D.? I mean, I don't know.
This one's tough because, I mean, Mac is a relatively minor character in Marvel Comics. He doesn't have a lot of history to base any assumptions off of.
It seems like he's going to have some major role here.
Right. It seems that, for whatever reason, Mac and Bobby, and presumably some other people who they kind of refer to as their backup in this episode, have a problem with S.H.I.E.L.D., or possibly just with Coulson and the way he's running S.H.I.E.L.D. So it's possible that they are... The best theory I have at the moment is that maybe they're trying to splinter off of S.H.I.E.L.D. and form their own group.
That would be interesting.
I think if they are doing that, they probably have noble intentions. Perhaps a little more isolationist, for lack of a better word, than S.H.I.E.L.D. is, because they seem to have a real problem with Coulson, who keeps getting involved in all this alien stuff. So maybe, I know that Hunter is a character in Marvel Comics who leads a group called Strike, which is essentially the British version of S.H.I.E.L.D. So perhaps they're repurposing Strike as a splinter group of S.H.I.E.L.D., and maybe Hunter will get involved with that down the line. Or maybe they'll name it, there have been other splinter groups like Hammer. Hammer was, in the comics, run by supervillains, but they could repurpose this for something else in the show. There are different possibilities. I get the impression that they're not supervillains or working with the bad guys, especially considering how firm Bobby was that they were not Hydra. They are not Hydra. They're not doing this. Mm-hmm. So I think it's they have the intention of doing good in the world. It's just their way of going about it is different from how
Coulson might not approve.
So right, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll find out more next week. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll get more news, interviews, clips like this, and follow us on Twitter at Comicbook.com for all your Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. news and everything else you're probably interested in to stay up to date.